This meeting to order. All who are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will have our land acknowledgement read by Director Egan.
On behalf of this board and the Cherry Creek School District, I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and Osheti-Shakowee people who stewarded it for generations. The Osheti-Shakowee include bands, so I would also like to recognize that over 40 additional tribal nations likely use this area for trade, ceremony, and social gatherings.
Thank you. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the agenda for the February 10th, 2025 regular Board of Education meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Roll call, please.
Directors Allen.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Egan. Garland. Knowles.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes as listed on the February 10th, 2025 agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Roll call, please.
Directors Allen.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Egan. Garland.
Aye.
Knowles.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we will have our monthly reports, and we'll begin with Director Egan.
Thank you and good evening. Thank you to Fox Ridge Middle School and Principal Yamagishi for hosting us tonight, and to our technology setup and safety and security teams for everything they do in preparation of our meetings. February is Black History Month, and we honor and celebrate the achievements, contributions, and legacy of Black individuals who have shaped our history and inspired generations. I was honored to deliver Educator Initiative grant checks to classrooms and teachers at Cherry Creek High School last week. These grants, made possible by the foundation, really do make a difference in our schools by rewarding the positive and innovative work of our educators. The Cherry Creek Schools Foundation had its first service event at Polton Elementary on Saturday, where more than 40 members of the community gathered to assemble 2,000 hygiene kits for our school resource pantries. Special thanks to Comcast for sponsoring this amazing event. The foundation will also be hosting its annual Elevate Gala on Thursday, March 27th. Visit ccsdfoundation.org to learn more about this event, featuring student performances, a live and silent auction, and more, all to support the students of Cherry Creek Schools. The foundation is also looking for a new executive director. The foundation staff and board are confident in finding a new leader following Jill Hendon, whose 13 years of service helped guide the foundation's recent positive impacts. The job posting can be found on the foundation's LinkedIn page, linkedin.com/company/CCSD Foundation. The CCSD Career and Technical Education Department hosted the 4th annual Women in Industry WIN event the week before last. There were a record 173 8th through 11th grade CCSD girls and over 50 industry leaders in attendance at the Arapahoe County Fairgrounds. WIN helps students explore and envision bright futures and challenging and rewarding careers they might not have considered before, such as aerospace and firefighting. Saturday was a busy day at CCI too, as students gathered to compete in the Skills USA regional competition. Thanks to all the participants, families, volunteers, and industry partners for their support of this competition. Congratulations to the Cherry Creek High School women's swim team for winning their 5th state championship title in a row. And to Cherry Creek's nurse Darcy, congratulations on being named Educator of the Year by District Health Services. It's Power Week at Cherry Creek High School. The online auction is directing all of its proceeds to benefit Bags of Fun, a nonprofit started by a local mother who lost her daughter to cancer. This amazing organization delivers bags filled with activities to bring joy to children in local hospitals. And Cherry Creek Schools has been selected to partner with the King Soopers Fight Hunger program. Throughout February and March, when you purchase a reusable Fight Hunger bag for $2.50 at the Yosemite and Bellevue King Soopers, $1 will be donated to CCSD resource pantries. Happy Valentine's Day to you and your loved ones. This concludes my comments.
Thank you, Director Egan. Director Knowles?
Thank you so much. Thank you to Fox Ridge Middle School for hosting and for everyone who helps make our traveling boardroom possible. Providing quality public education for all children is a fundamental component of our country. In our public schools, we take all kids. For the past 75 years, the Cherry Creek School District has been committed to public education and providing a quality education through our neighborhood schools. Over the years, much has been added to the plates for public education. For example, it's become the place where children may get the only meals of their day. It's become childcare for working parents. Due to advancements in medicine, we now have more medically fragile children in our schools than ever before. This is incredible, and it comes with the need for additional staff and knowledge. Cherry Creek has taken on these additional responsibilities and additional mandates, oftentimes investing more money than were allocated by state or federal funds because of our commitment to excellence. The past several weeks have brought a lot of uncertainty to our country, including to the future of public education. I ask that you please stay engaged. Please commit to keeping education free and accessible for all students. I ask that you speak up and advocate by calling your members of Congress and senators, call our governor, and please encourage state legislators to work towards protecting public education in Colorado. I also encourage in this time to seek connections. Make a commitment to take care of each other. Choose to see the humanity in everyone around you. We are all more alike than we are different. Hopes and dreams you have for your kids are the same hopes and dreams others have for their kids. Keep yourself grounded by staying connected with people around you. We can continue to make a big impact in our local community. Stay engaged and stay hopeful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Knowles. Director Allen?
Thank you, President Garland, and good evening, everyone. It's great to be back at Fox Ridge, and thank you to the community for hosting and for our setup and security teams for all the behind-the-scenes work they do every month. February is Black History Month, and it's a time to honor the achievements and contributions of Black Americans throughout history. In Cherry Creek, we integrate Black history into our curriculum year-round, ensuring that all students see themselves in what they learn. I encourage families to participate in district and community events celebrating Black excellence. At the federal level, we continue preparing for potential ICE activity in our community. Our response team remains focused on training, communication, and ensuring every student feels safe and supported. Our commitment is clear. Cherry Creek Schools welcomes every student and staff member without exception. We remain committed to fostering an inclusive and supportive environment where every student can thrive. At the state level, the proposed elimination of declining enrollment averaging threatens to cut $17 million from our district, roughly 170 teachers. Schools cannot adjust overnight to funding changes, and funding stability is essential. We have testified against the proposal, and I encourage parents to contact lawmakers and voice their concerns. At the local level, as a board, we are responsible for acquiring reliable information, analyzing data, and evaluating educational programs and outcome assessments to make informed decisions that shape the quality of education in our district. This year, our district achieved a record high on-time graduation rate of 91.2% for the class of 2024, exceeding the state average of 84.2% and the national average of 87%. These gains reflect our commitment to expanding opportunities and improving outcomes for all students. We will continue to assess our programs, use reliable data to guide decisions, and hold ourselves accountable for preparing students for their future. Cherry Creek School District recently held its Women in Industry Forum, and I will echo what Director Egan said about the event. I had the opportunity to attend the full-day forum, and it is a place where CCSD students met female professionals across a variety of industries. I had the opportunity to lead a small group sessions at the conference, speaking with students about careers in the law and criminal justice. These discussions highlighted opportunities, challenges, and the importance of representation in these fields. It was inspiring to see students engage with professionals and gain confidence in their future careers. I recently hopped on a school bus with Falcon Creek 8th graders, a whole bus full of 8th graders, to go visit our Cherry Creek Innovation Campus. And while they thought it was eye-opening, my eyes were opened watching them experience walking onto that campus for the first time. The kids got to explore hands-on opportunities with fields like healthcare, IT, and skilled trades. And these experiences help students connect classroom learning to real-world opportunities, making a lasting impact as they plan for high school and discover their pathway of purpose. And also recently at the 2025 Cherry Creek School District Spelling Bee, students showcased their incredible skills and determination. Congratulations to our 5th grade champion, Anjali Kanikar. I practiced that so many times, I'm sorry, Anjali. The top 20 students now move on to the state competition, and we are incredibly proud of all of our participants who put in the hard work to compete at that level. Parent involvement strengthens our schools and supports student success. Here are some upcoming ways to get involved. The Special Education Advisory Committee meets on March 13th at 9:30 to 11:30 at the Fremont Building. This month's topic is Getting Started with Advocacy, a valuable discussion for parents navigating special education. Also consider joining your school's Accountability Committee or Voices of Color Committee. Both are great ways to shape our schools. The next Grandview Accountability and Voices meeting is on April 10th at 6 p.m. And you should check your school's calendars for dates of these meetings. And lastly, please join us for the Grandview versus Cherry Creek girls varsity basketball game on February 12th at 5:30 p.m. These top-ranked teams promise an exciting, high-energy matchup. Come out and support our student athletes and school community. Thank you for being here tonight and for your continued engagement in our schools.
Thank you, Director Allen. Director Bates?
Thank you and good evening. Thank you again to Fox Ridge for hosting us this evening, and as always, thank you to all that help make these meetings happen. Without you all, we would be stuck in a small boardroom without any visitors. I would also like to say thank you to the board and DLT to take time off to care for my own physical health. I appreciate your understanding when I had to miss meetings and activities. In that vein, I have not attended many activities since winter break. So I would like to discuss what has been going on in our country recently regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am sickened by what we are seeing, that this is being taken away from so many places. DEI has been made out to be a system of hiring people based solely on their race, religion, or their identity. This is simply not the case. I can almost guarantee that every one of you in this room has benefited from DEI. Let me just list a few that you may take advantage of on a regular basis and never thought of it as diversity, inclusion, or equity. We have wheelchair ramps, curb cutouts, and elevators in all facilities. We have flexible work hours for those who have families. There's job protection now for those who are returning to work from an extended leave for illness or caregiving. We have ergonomic tools such as standing desks, footrests, and wrist supports. We even have tuition reimbursement for continuing education. CCEA even offers free classes for our teachers to earn credits. We have access to industry conferences and training programs. Even this board takes advantage of that and attends an annual conference to learn from other districts in our state. Mental health days and wellness programs, we have those to reduce burnout from our staff. Many of our schools, if not all, have Zen dens for our staff now, so they can take time. There's also areas for our students as well to take time out from their day. We have telehealth services for both physical and mental health. Breastfeeding and pumping areas with privacy and comfortable seating. Yes, women would feed their babies in the bathroom stall or a changing room in the past. We also have changing tables in all restrooms now. There was a time when only women's restrooms had changing tables, and fathers had to change babies on the dirty floor or get creative. And of course, making our best effort to hire staff that represents the diverse nature of our students in both race, gender, and creed. This is only a short list of what diversity, equity, and inclusion is all about. There are many resources with lists of items that help all. So please take a look at you, your family, your friends. Have you been helped by having these systems in place? If the answer is yes, why then should these be getting dismantled? Please remember that February, along with being Black History Month, is also the month of love. Please go out, spread that stuff like it is glitter. One small gesture can lead to a whole movement. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Director Bates. Good evening, and thank you to the Fox Ridge community for hosting us tonight. The Long Range Planning Committee met in late January. Over the past 2.5 years, this committee has focused on addressing the maintenance and capital improvement needs throughout our district. The committee has worked closely with members of our district leadership team to assess community trends and also the improvements needed by several buildings. More specifically, they helped develop a prioritized list of capital improvements which played a key role in shaping the mill levy and bond package presented by this board to our voters. During the January meeting, the group received an overview of several departments, including transportation, nutrition, and finance. We also talked about trends in population and the growth within our community. These reports served as a reminder that our school district is larger than many cities in our state. It truly takes a village to manage and support this educational community. The Long Range Committee will continue its work in forwarding information to the board regarding our district's needs. Some members of the Long Range Committee also received an overview of several issues currently facing our school district in the legislature, including challenges around the proposed budget, potential cuts to K through 12, and the school finance as a whole. Congratulations to Independence Elementary School, specifically the third graders that participated in civics lessons and then wrote letters to Aurora's Mayor Mike Kaufman. Mayor Kaufman visited with the students and engaged with the classes and held a Q&A session. It's exciting to see the next generation of voters already engaged in their local government. A big congratulations to the Smoky Hill community on a successful Wish Week. Wish Week provides our students with an opportunity to conduct and participate in a philanthropic campaign at every level. Also at Smoky Hill, a good job and well done to Teachers of the Year, Kelly Strohs, who teaches math, and Chris Toka, who teaches social studies. Parents of middle and high schoolers, please check your school's website for information regarding course enrollment for the 2025-26 school year. Finally, over the past month, I've had the opportunity to interact with students and community members on various evening and weekend events, both at schools and in our community. Additionally, I've taken advantage of opportunities to converse with state legislatures in both chambers and on both sides of the aisle about various issues surrounding school funding and how some of these current proposals would negatively impact not only Cherry Creek, but districts across our state. Please stay engaged, and happy Black History Month. Thank you. And now we'll have comments from Superintendent Smith.
Thank you, President Garland. Thank you, Fox Ridge Middle School, for hosting us tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for all that you do for our students each and every day. I also want to recognize Black History Month and the contributions our Black community has given to our school district, our surrounding community, and this world. Representative Hamrick, welcome. Thank you for all that you do for our school district. We appreciate you. A couple of things that I just want to share with us and that have been touched on by our Board of Education. First off, I just want to say thank you to our Board of Education for always having the focus on what's most important, and that is the students who walk through the doors of Cherry Creek schools every single day. And as stated earlier, we welcome all. We welcome everyone. It doesn't matter your race, your religion, who you love, how you identify, we welcome you here. Cherry Creek is a family, and while this world is uncertain, one thing is not. We stand in our core values, and we will continue to push forward and making sure that all of our students get the best education they possibly can. This afternoon, I sent out a video to our community talking about our undocumented and immigrant families and the resources that we are providing to them. On Saturday and on Tuesday, there are opportunities for those families to know their rights from an organization called Diversified. Also this afternoon, I sent out a video to all staff talking about the things that we are doing and the things that I ask of them to continue to love every student as they come through the doors of Cherry Creek, not just this month, but every month, and ensuring that they know that they're valued and they're cared about, and they will be taught to the best of our ability every single day. I also do want to talk about the drastic cuts that are being talked about at the state level. The state budget has been balanced on the back of public education for the last 15 years. It's someone else's turn. Our students deserve the resources that they need to have the education that is properly given to them, and we will fight to ensure that that happens. And I'm not just talking about Cherry Creek School District, I'm talking about all the students in the state of Colorado. They deserve the best of what we can give them. And once again, we've done our part, and it's time for someone else to lean in. And we will continue to be down at the Capitol and have these conversations. And while our world is turbulent, and while things are uncertain, it is my job to remain calm. As superintendent of this school district, it is my job to ensure that people get the information that they need and our students get the care that they deserve, and I will continue to do that. So I will continue to send out communications once a week so our staff is informed about all the different things that are happening. Because while I trust my principals to get them that information, it's important for me to share information with our staff every week because I'm the superintendent. And I will continue to go out to schools and have conversations with staff if they ask me to come. But I want one thing to be crystal clear. We are public education, and it is our job to make sure that we welcome everyone. And the students that spoke this evening spoke of equity, spoke of diversity, and the value that they, as students, have in those areas. Equity is not a dirty word. Equity is about the lived experiences of those that we serve and those that we serve alongside. It is incredibly important that I know your story, because your story is who you are. That is equity. Equity is ensuring that every student who walks through the doors gets what they need at the level that they need it. The resources that they need. If they need food, we provide it. If they need extra education, we provide it. If they need transportation, we provide it. That is equity. And it is one of our core values, and we will continue to do it. And there are trainings that we do in this district about some of the things and some of the lived experiences that our families go through. Being a white male, my experience is very different than a black female. And those perceptions that are put on them, I do not take that lightly, and we need to continue to support everyone in this district, and I will continue to do so. This is public education. This is what I came in for, and this is what I will fight for. And I will continue to fight for it every single day, because it's a window and a door of opportunity for many of our students. So I thank our staff, all of our staff, for what they do for our students each and every day, because I know it's not easy, and these times are making it even less easy. But I care about you as who you are, so please reach out, because I need you to take care of our students. So if you need supports, please reach out to your leadership so we can get you what you need. And with that, I'd like to thank our librarians over here for actually having a really fun opportunity coming to us, Cherry Creek Reads Week. So thank you for your leadership. That's one of the most fun times I get to do is go out to schools and read to kids. So thank you for constantly making that a priority, especially while our strategic plan is reading. So thank you for that. I really, really appreciate it. And that concludes my comments, Ms. Garland.
Thank you,
Now-
Superintendent Smith.
Yeah,
And also, thank you
sorry.
for your leadership. I mean,
Thank-
I know it's not easy to have these conversations right now. So thank you for your bravery and being just a forward-thinking leader. We
Thank you, I
appreciate that.
appreciate that. Now I'd like to introduce Scott Smith, our Chief Financial Officer, Chief Operating Officer, for operations update this evening.
Thank you, Superintendent Smith. Board members, I'm here with an update on our operations. As you know, we are an incredibly large organization, and generally we like to stay in the background and not be visible. But as I tell all of our folks, they're all educators as well. We have the opportunity to greet our kids first, see them at lunchtime, and be the last ones that they see at the end of the day. And so our operations team plays a huge role. And so thank you to Mr. David Henderson, who is here, Kim Kilgore, Matt Schaefer, Gary Thompson, Mark Van Cleve, all those folks who help make this happen every single day. So we'll touch a little bit on each of the areas just briefly and give you an update on where we are at. So thank you to our voters who passed a $950 million bond this fall. We are off and running. We were the first school district out of the gate. We did a ton of work up front to be ready to go, and we have already broken ground in some places. But you can see here the biggest projects that we have, the doubling the size of the CCIC, building a pool at Overland, as well as refreshing the IST building, rebuilding Laredo Middle School, building a new single building for the Hollies, rebuilding the west building of Cherry Creek High School, and then finishing our new nutrition warehouse are all well into production. We have broken ground in places, but you can see we're going to have some buildings start to open for the 26-27 school year, and then you'll see the rest come online after that. The CCIC, I still remember the first time I walked in there. I was not working at this school district, and I said, oh my goodness, no one has anything like this. And still no one has anything like it. And now we'll be able to double the size of it. One thing that you'll notice on these slides is that we've started to understand where we're at with budget. We built our budgets based on construction estimates. Construction is expensive. As I've told you, Altitude Elementary cost us about $28 million. Woodland cost us $35 million, and prices only continue to go up from there. The good news on CCIC is we're slightly under budget. We're seeing prices at our different construction areas anywhere from $600 a square foot up to $700 a square foot. It might depend on the partner that we're using. It might depend on the materials, the finishes, the square footage, the complexity of the project. But all of this goes into our plans and how we adjust the bond over time. And so good news is on the CCIC is that we're coming in slightly under budget. Overland's the other side of the coin. We slightly underestimated the cost, but there will be no reduction in scope. We have savings in other places. We make sure that we have contingency in so that we can execute all of these plans. The pool building at Overland will be bigger than our other pools in the fact that it's a standalone building. It's not part of the rest of the campus. It will be 8 lanes, just like Cherry Creek High School is as well. And so we are building a facility there that I think is going to be truly magnificent for the Overland feeder, as well as refreshing the IST building to make sure, as we've talked before, that it becomes what it was truly envisioned to be, which are pathways for our kids that are largely on the Overland campus, but also pathways that are unique. And if our kids at other schools want to access them, just like they do now through IST, they're able to do that as well. Laredo is on budget, 150,000 square foot new middle school. The fly-throughs, the designs, it will be spectacular. It will be probably as stark a difference as any 2 buildings that we will see from where we're at to where we are going. We are right now getting close to getting to those groundbreaking ceremonies. We'll be doing that at every single building, engaging with the community, celebrating with the community, but Laredo is moving along with our other projects. The Hollies, we are expected to be on budget there as well. We had a great community meeting there a few weeks ago, talking about how do we preserve the history and legacy of those two buildings. They're the third and fourth oldest buildings in the district. The community was great, excited. Not surprising, their biggest concerns are the logistics of how all this happens in a very crowded place over the next 18 months or so. I will give a ton of credit to Molly, the principal. She said, for 1 year I can make anything happen. And when we talk about growth mindset, that is exactly what we are talking about, because when this is said and done, hopefully everyone will forget about some of those bumps and bruises along the way, because we'll have a truly incredible facility that reflects the education experience that's already occurring at the Hollies. Cherry Creek High School Phase 1. So this is the most complex project. It's also the last one that is going. We are in the midst of a year-long design right now. You can see that red box. If you haven't put together, a lot of the people in this room work underneath that red box. And we are going to be displacing them and knocking down those admin buildings to replace the west building at Cherry Creek High School. It will definitely be inconvenient. We're going to find space nearby to rent for a few years until we find a permanent home. But the question in my mind is always, if we're going to inconvenience someone, should it be the 4,000 students or the 200 adults? And that's a very easy question when you're looking at what are the core values and why we are here for this organization. And so we have selected a general contractor there, JHL, who's been a partner of the district for a long time, and are just starting on that process of designing the new west building at Cherry Creek High School. Enrollment. We are not, unlike almost every district on the Front Range, declining in enrollment, largely due to demographics. Birth rates are down across this county, across the state, country, and the world. What's interesting here is that in the past, you can see our kindergarten enrollment in red and births in blue, and it tracks pretty closely with it. But you'll notice for a long time, we had more kindergartners than births. That means people were moving in between those first 5 years. Now that is flipped, where we have fewer kindergartners than births. That's largely reflective of the cost of living in our district. But you can see that those track very closely together and are a very good proxy for what enrollment should look like in the long term. So we've declined from a high of about 55,000 students to just over 52,000 students this year. And we will continue to decline by a couple hundred students every single year until we flatten out. The state demographer is projecting increased births in Arapahoe County and Cherry Creek School District. And so we'll see that we'll grow in enrollment again in outside the forecast period, which we're pretty comfortable with, about 5 years. But this is important because you'll hear a lot of rhetoric at the state around changing how we count kids and what we should do to save money. And unfortunately from the state, the answer is, well, you just need to close schools faster. That might work in some communities, but we don't have any schools to close at this time. We may have schools that we need to repurpose in the future that we need to look at as enrollment continues to decline, but we run really big schools. Our smallest elementary school is bigger than the vast majority of elementary schools in other districts. And so sometimes these very simplistic solutions are based on a narrative that we might hear out of our larger districts in the metro area, but just don't apply everywhere. And so the ability for us to be strategic and plan for our enrollment is really key in making sure that we can deliver a robust education for all of our kids for the, I guess now 14 years that they're with us with Universal Preschool. Our district is largely built out. One of the largest last developments is Prairie Point. This was previously known as Kings Point. As the folks who have been around here longer than I have told me, we've been 6 months away from moving dirt for about the last 20 years. But I'm happy to tell you today we're about 6 months away from moving dirt. If this were to come on full online, you can see the impacts into our schools in that area. Due to declining enrollment, we don't have any concerns, especially at Liberty Middle School and Grandview. We may have to look at Creekside Elementary and Boundaries a few years away should we have to get there, and we'll have to see how the rest of the enrollment plays through. But there are about 3 developments that are left. This is the biggest, but also the one that has been delayed over and over and over again. So we'll continue to update the board as we go further. Our food service. We heard about the great Kim Kilgore here today. Her team pulls off miracles every single day. Before the pandemic, we were serving about 4 million meals a day. We're now serving about 4 million meals a year, 6 million meals now. We are about to serve 40,000 meals a day right now. It's really easy to say that number. When you think about what that would take, I'm still blown away that we're able to do it. And we're doing it in a warehouse that was built for about 13,000 fewer kids and 20 fewer schools. So that's why we're excited to bring on our new nutrition warehouse that can actually serve all of our kids and be able to ensure that we have robust meal offerings, choice, cultural sensitivity, all of those things that we want to make sure that we offer when we talk about equity and whole well-being. Nutrition services plays a huge piece in that. We receive about half of our funding from the federal government. So you can probably not surprised when we heard that all federal funding was being paused. That was a huge concern. We receive about $50 million a year in federal funding across USDA, Medicaid, Title I, IDEA support for our students with special education needs. It's a real amount of money and would have a material impact in our district should that go away. But you can see we have state reimbursement and we have a la carte sales as well. And I know that's a topic that a lot of parents bring up, and so I'm going to touch on that in a second because I've learned a lot having two kids who go through the meal program. Ms. Kilgore always says that I probably know more about the day-to-day menu than she does because we're always judging on whether we have to pack a home lunch or send the kids to eat hot lunch at school. The menu is a real balancing act. We've got challenges logistically in our warehouse and what we're able to do, but there are probably no surprise to anyone. There are lots of rules and regulations that we have to follow. But most importantly, we have to keep our kids safe. So whether it's food safety, allergies, special diets, those kinds of things, all of that is at the hands of our food service team. They take that very seriously as we're serving, as I said, about 40,000 meals a day. We try to make as much as we can in-house and from scratch. That will get a lot better with our new facility as we have space to do it. But I think a lot of the things that people don't realize is the food we serve is appealing and it is delicious and it's also healthy and it's not always what it appears to be. So for instance, we get Domino's pizza a lot of times on Wednesday. I know that Wednesday is always pizza day. But you cannot buy that Domino's pizza as a normal consumer. Domino's has a separate production line just for K-12 schools so that it meets all of the nutrition requirements from the National School Lunch Program. The same thing is true on our a la carte sales. It looks exactly like the bag of Doritos that you buy at the grocery store, except it probably couldn't be any different. And that's the intent, right, is that we want our kids to be getting healthy food, right? And yes, there are a la carte sales that we have, but they all meet the guidelines of the National School Lunch Program and the Smart Snack Program. But they are designed to look just like the other food that you eat. That Rice Krispie treat you cannot get unless you are in a public school lunchroom, right? But these businesses have set up separate business lines to be able to comply with these standards. And of course, parents can limit. If they don't want their kids to have certain things or the amount of money they spend, they have that ability, of course, through their kids' lunch program. Transportation. So we run 250 routes every single day. Roughly half are special education routes and half are conventional routes. We continue to add more routes, so whether it's due to changing boundaries of schools and what feeders they're in, but also as we have new students with special education, their individualized education program, their IEP, if it requires them to have transportation, we have to transport those kids as well. And so we cover as many of those routes in-house as we can, but no district can cover all of the routes that they have to in-house, and so we rely on third-party contractors. We also use third-party contractors for non-special education routes. So it might be kids who qualify under McKinney-Vento to attend their school that they first attended before they went through housing insecurity. Or it might be kids who need rides to Traverse Academy, right, who don't have access to that. We are able to provide them rides to make sure that they can access the programs that they want. We do more in transportation than any large district on the Front Range. In DPS, once you reach high school, you get an RTD bus pass. Our other big districts are doing kind of furlough weeks and timeouts and changing walk distances and all these things. As I've talked to the superintendent about a core value of equity, if you can't access a program, it's not truly equitable, right? And so we do things that nobody else does. From midday routes to the CCIC shuttles with our ILC students getting out in the community, they do an absolutely incredible job. Our mechanics are right there with them. We have 3 shops across our district. In addition to all the buses we service, you can see there about 250 additional vehicles that we have, whether they're trailers or what we call white fleet for our trades and security folks. They are working all the time to keep us on the road. A celebration here is we do have an apprenticeship program through transportation. We've hired 2 of our own students after they've graduated to become mechanics with us and put them on a career path being a diesel mechanic, whether hopefully it's here at the school district, but anywhere else they want to go. Some celebrations: for the first time in 20 years, we've filled all of our bus assistant positions. That is a massive win, especially for our families with students with special education needs. We've been able to replace buses. We're able to replace about 1/15 of our fleet every year. And so that really helps our bus drivers with safer buses, lower emissions. It's everything that you recognize when you change cars in your personal life, right? But that's their working environment. That's also our kids' environment. First thing they see when they come to school and the last thing that they see. We're continuing to push the use of our bus cards, so swiping on and off as you go off the bus. It's really a security measure. We know where kids are. When we need to find a kid, we know if they're on the bus or not, if they got off at the wrong stop, if they didn't get off at all, whatever it may be. Our elementary kids are doing great. Middle schoolers are doing better. High schoolers are still a little bit of a tough nut to crack, but we are getting there. And then a massive celebration is Wanda on our bus team. They do these things called bus rodeos, and there's one in Colorado and Pueblo every year that we do very well. But Wanda actually won the National Bus Rodeo Champion, which is all about how do you drive safely, things I think about, backing around a corner in a passenger vehicle and then do it in a 70-passenger bus, those types of things. And she is the National Bus Rodeo Champion, a great celebration for Cherry Creek. Lastly, facility operations. So we have almost 8 million square feet of space. So whether you think about keeping that, maybe to my colleague's chagrin, hot enough or cold enough on a day-to-day basis, clean, all the plumbing that has to keep working, all of those things that hopefully you never notice we're there, but when something goes wrong, you definitely want us there. And so really what we have stressed is that all of our people are educators and play an important role. Think about our grounds department. Just like adults, if you go into a building that isn't well kept or doesn't look invested in, you don't really think that the people want you there or want to feel that you're included there. Our grounds team, just like our bus drivers, is the first impression we get to make. What does it look like to come to work here? What does it look like to come to school here? That is important. That goes into culture and climate, and we're really driving that yes, we're here to keep the buildings running and keep them healthy and safe, but we're also here to build relationships with kids and make sure that our schools are welcoming places and are pillars of our community as well, right? We know that we run a very strong neighborhood school model. That means we're in the middle of neighborhoods. We need to make sure that we're doing our part to match that look and that feel in that neighborhood. We hired, as I mentioned, Mark Van Cleve as our new director of facilities. He's really taken a data approach to this and saying, we obviously have to fix things when things go wrong, but let's start to shift some of our work and start to do more preventative maintenance. Because the best problem that we can have is one that never actually occurs, right? That we catch things before they fail, or we fix areas that haven't been attended to, and that our schools can spend their time focused on what they need to, which is educating kids. They don't need to be spending their time on putting in work orders and double checking and making sure that things are running. That's our job to take care of. Our maintenance team, unlike other places, really leans into construction and maintenance. And so there are going to be projects, in addition to our bond projects this summer, that our maintenance team is helping to lead. So whether it's roofing, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, all of those things as well. And so as you go around, if you see a building engineer or you see other folks that we have here on our team for maintenance and facilities, they are the quiet champions in our district. And we're very lucky in this district, and that extends to our facility folks as well. They do an incredible job, and sometimes we joke, we wish they didn't do such an incredible job because it makes it harder to convince people that we have capital needs, but a lot of those are behind the walls that you don't get to see all the time. So, in closing, I'm incredibly blessed. I came up the finance side and was able to take a role here that included operations, and being able to work and learn from David Henderson and the other great people in this department. Cherry Creek is truly lucky to have this group in operations, and our kids are the beneficiaries of that, and I'm truly proud to work with them, and I'm happy to answer any questions that our board members may have.
Thank you. Director Egan, do you have any questions?
Hi, thank you for being here, Mr. Smith. That's good to see you. I wanted to just have a shout out to Kim Kilgore, who's sitting back there, about doing such exceptional work around our food services and making things that are appetizing for our students to eat. I know you feed thousands and thousands of students, and we appreciate that, so thank you. I'd also just like to mention a couple things. I know that when we went to tour the bus hub, it was fascinating to see that in process and to all the parts that go around that, just that we don't realize in terms of also the work that goes on in our schools that we don't see, that's behind the scenes, and so much of our mill and bond and our budget goes to those kinds of things too. And so I think it's good to be able to have it lined out and see it on the screen. I wondered if you could talk just a little bit about universal free meals. What's happening with that at the federal and state level?
Sure. So, I mean, I think the first thing is that we absolutely love and support the idea of universal free meals. I think we've seen correlation in our data around truancy, chronic absenteeism, student performance, the stigma around, especially at our Title I schools, we're seeing way more participation by our students who already qualify for free reduced lunch. And so it's a win all around. The challenge is that, and it's a familiar story, unfortunately, in Colorado lately, is that it's underfunded. And the state has been backfilling it with reserves. But essentially, we designed a program that didn't have enough revenue to support it. I would like to say in Cherry Creek, we're not going to go backwards. But we need the state to make sure that they fund school finance and everything that they have asked us to do. I think the challenging part is that in order to qualify for state reimbursement, we have to do everything to maximize federal reimbursement first. And some changes that have been proposed out of the new administration are going to make that much more difficult. The first is that there's a provision called a community eligibility provision, or CEP. And essentially the idea is that if your community qualifies at such a rate for free lunch, we can reasonably extrapolate that the entire community could benefit from free lunch. That's oversimplifying it, but that's the idea. The new administration essentially wants to triple the threshold of what you would have to do to qualify in order to get your entire school qualified. The other is that income verification. So if you submit an application for free lunch, by law, we're required to audit 3% of those applications to ensure that you do indeed qualify for free lunch. The new proposed regulation would be 100% audit of every single application. I will tell you, having talked to Kim, we don't catch a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse among people applying for free school lunch. And I think this is just another example of where we are trying to balance the budget on the backs of those who are the most vulnerable. The bang for your buck of auditing from, and again, we can be reasonable on anything. If you said we need to go from 3% to 6% or whatever it may be, we're not here trying to fight that. We understand what the idea would be, but it seems to me to be incredibly punitive and targeted to somehow suggest that folks who are trying to qualify for free lunch at school are the ones gaming the system.
Yeah, it's an issue. If we expect schools and we expect K-12 public education to be all things to all families and all students, it's important that our kids don't go hungry, and we start with that. So I guess I was unaware that we have didn't think we had a diesel mechanic program currently. We did.
We do. So there's some diesel, and then Smoky is the big automotive area, and then we run an apprenticeship in partnership with the CCIC through our transportation.
Okay, but
department.
not standalone at CCIC.
No,
No.
not at
Okay,
CCIC.
No.
That's what I wondered.
Yeah.
I think I misheard you. And then also, I guess just the last thing is that I know that I'm preaching to the choir on this, but with declining enrollment and with these situations that are tricky and will become more tricky going forward, I think, and I talked about this both times I ran for election, about making sure that our communities, our public schools really are the cornerstone of our community, and those decisions are it's hard to have that looming out there.
It is, and I think where we've looked at is, the $17 million cut that the governor has contemplated is the equivalent of shutting down 4 elementary schools. We don't have one elementary school to close right now, but that is the equivalent, or 2 middle schools or 1 high school. That's just not the reality in our district. And so what I've always told people is, if we lose 100 kids across 65 schools and 13 grades, nothing changes here at all. But the governor wants to cut us $17 million in that equation, right? And I think that's helping to understand that what really matters in our district is when we have to hire more staff or reduce staff if we're getting smaller, right? It's not a one-for-one function. It's when do we need another teacher, another nurse, another assistant principal, or vice versa. As you know, the superintendent and I have talked is if we lost 100 kids, 20 kids a grade, all at one school, you could cut us one for one and we'll figure it out. But when you spread it across the system, it just doesn't work like that. And unfortunately, that's falling on deaf ears right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Director Knowles?
Thank you so much. Very interesting. And every time I hear it, I learn, again, something new, even though we've heard this before. You know, I was looking at the population of Colorado cities, and if you added together our staff and our students, we would be around number 20 between Littleton and Parker. So yeah, it's a significant amount of people that we serve, and you have great teams. So I really appreciate you sharing tonight. I love your slides. They're always informative. I go back to them when I talk to people and let them know about what's happening in the district when they have questions, because you just have a lot of really good facts in there. So thank you so much for preparing such good slides that we can then take that information and bring it out to the community. You might have shared this before, but can you remind us, if you have, what do you think will happen to the old food nutrition warehouse when the new one's built?
That's
Or do you know?
No, I think in all of these pieces is that we're committed to use it in some way in an instructional way, right? And so we know, and I'm just throwing out ideas, so please don't hold me to it, right? We know we need more space for Endeavor. Would we look at expanding that campus using it? We're gonna need a place for ESC at some point as we move out in the long term. You know, we've talked about things about resource pantries and community access to those kind of resources, different magnet programs. We've even talked about possibly, at one point, CHASA was looking for space, and would we rent it to CHASA or a portion to CHASA? I think the biggest thing, we've talked about this with Holly Ridge as well, the nutrition warehouse, those kind of things, is that we're not getting rid of that land, we're not selling that land, we're going to use it for something instructional, but we haven't gotten there yet, and that's really what comes out of the 2028 bond is what do we do with those spaces? We know another one is we need spots for 4-year-olds. Universal preschool is great, but we also need room for them. So we look at preschool centers across the district. There are plenty of ideas among my colleagues percolating when we're sitting in cabinet, and we will put it to good use, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of fun to think about. I asked most of my questions when you presented to us last week, so I don't have any more, but just want to also comment that I love the farm references in transportation, like the rodeo and the bus barn. Like the images that they create are so fun. So just wanted to throw that comment out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Director Allen?
Thank you so much for your presentation. Again, I agree with Director Knowles. I learn something every time this is presented, and it's so incredible to think about the community we serve, not just the population, but how big it is physically. So I just wanted to start with something that I am always reminded of. You know, Superintendent Smith talks all the time about the importance of relationships, beginning with the bus driver at the beginning of the day. And just anecdotal story, whenever I get all the 8th grade girls that are in my life together, because my daughter is in 8th grade, I ask those things. I love hearing about what relationships they're building and what's important to them. And one of the questions I ask is, who's the first person you would buy a present to say thank you? And the amount of times I hear the bus driver is incredible. So they are driving this bus with 76th, 7th, and 8th graders, and that's the person that stands out to them, and I think that's remarkable. So thank you to that transportation team, and to remaining true to our word about all of these relationships matter. Not once they walk into school, it's how they feel when they get there. So thank you. And I would say the same with food and nutrition. Thank you, Kim, for creating such an incredible environment for our employees to work and to be proud of where they work and to be proud of how they're serving our kids, even when it's behind the scenes. So thank you so much. And we do recognize how much more there is to this district than the faces that we see every single day in the classroom. So thank you. I don't have any other questions, but keep up the good work.
Thank you. Director Bates?
All right, thank you again. Always appreciate this presentation. One question I do have is on the bus routes, how accurate is the GPS for estimated times of arrival and things like that? I hear parents come, and I hear things, I read things, and oh, well, they're late again. Well, check the app. But
It's a fair point. I think, in a perfect world, yes, it's accurate. I will say it's more information than our parents have ever had in the past. Your kid is on the bus and those things, but there are things that we deal with in transportation where if we have an accident or something like that, we have to wait for a relief bus to come, right? Or we're in traffic at the worst times of every day. It still mystifies me how oftentimes the massive yellow school bus gets hit by people that somehow didn't see it coming around the corner. But it's, it's those types of things. Our driver's job, first and foremost, is to keep kids safe. And then it's to deliver them on time. And so if there are specific instances, we're happy to look into it and see if there's a systemic issue with it. But I will tell you is in a semi-urban type environment, predicting arrival times perfectly sometimes proves more difficult.
well, is it based though on GPS or no?
Yes.
It is based on GPS. So if you're sitting, if the yellow bus is sitting because it's been hit, they should be able to know that their bus is just sitting there.
And we will push
And
out with
so-
our communications team and other folks, whether it's messages through the app or through other things to let folks know.
Well, and that's I guess
Yeah.
the real question is too. Then I guess, are parents really are they utilizing the app like they should be using the app, and how can we push it out to more parents to use it? Because
We continue to push it all the time. I will tell you a lot of times where it has helped is where we get the feedback of this bus is 20 minutes late all the time, and we go and look at it and it's actually not. Or other things, or it may be, right? But we now have the data that proves that out, and so we can adjust routes. We can add more buses. It's especially difficult at the beginning of the year, but as that gets ironed out, it generally runs a lot smoother, and I'll give a lot of credit to our transportation team and our schools. They really leaned in over the past couple years to figure out, it's not as simple the first week of school as just going to pick up all the kids where you think they're going to be, right? They move around, they change, the grades change, those kind of things. But we've come a long way with it, and that real-time data does help us because we don't want to be running buses that are half full, right? We don't have the luxury of doing that, right? And so we're able to respond quicker. But I've also known we've used it with safety and security. We know if a kid has eloped or hasn't been found, have they gotten on a bus? Have they gotten off of a bus? Even when parents are frustrated, and I understand it, but we know if a kid gets off at the wrong stop, exactly which stop they got off at. That helps law enforcement, that helps everyone find that kid that much quicker. So I would say that yes, there are some growing pains and things that we need to work on, but overall, from a safety standpoint, it is definitely a huge step in the right direction.
thank you. And just one other comment. I know you mentioned the other day the $50 million in the federal funds. What I don't think people realize is that if we lose that, it's 500 teaching positions that we would
And
have.
really, it's 500 staff members,
Or staff,
right? Because teachers, we spend 90% of our money on people. 75% of that is on licensed teaching staff. There's no way that teachers don't get affected, and there's also no way that principals and assistant principals and nurses and bus drivers and up and down the organization. At $50 million, it's the equivalent of closing 12 elementary schools. There's no way to do that without impacting real core service of our school district. And I mean, it'd be one thing, I don't think any of us are super surprised from the federal level of what we've heard and what's been coming, but when your governor's trying to do it to you at the same time, that makes it even worse.
The thing that I would just add to that, Ms. Bates, and I appreciate the question, is it's to our most sensitive learners. So when you're thinking about this, it's an impact on our most sensitive learning at title schools and special education and all of those other aspects. So again, to your point in your comments, putting it on the backs of our most needy kids and families.
Thank you. And again, I know Ms. Kilgore also mentioned the meals and the cuts from the government, that we don't even get enough money from the government to pay for those meals, and that's just,
It's incredible what they're able to do. You know, we're not immune from inflation and other things. You know, it's, you know, what Kim told me, my kids loved the quesadillas that they had one day, and she told me it takes 3,000 pounds of cheese to make quesadillas for one day in this school district. That food inflation is very real, and they do everything that they do for $4.25 a meal at lunch. It's incredible.
yeah. Okay. All right, and finally, as a former swim mother, I appreciate the fact that you are making the Overland swimming pool an 8-lane pool. I appreciate that that's going to be an 8-lane pool and that that facility will be larger than our other high schools because it needs to be, it's tight in our other schools. So I appreciate that, so thank you. That concludes, that's my question.
I do have a couple questions. I know there's like all this discussion around making our fleet like all electric. What are some of the challenges, or are we able to do that?
Thank you, President Garland. That's a great question. One thing that I am proud of is having brought some more green practices to the district and a little bit more of an eye on those types of things. But we're running an $800 million organization and it needs to make sense. The unfortunate reality is that electric buses, the story that has been sold doesn't reflect the reality of how that would work. And so we have, for using a terrible pun, we have kicked the tires on electric buses, and it's just not real yet. I think it will be at one day. Right now we spend about $130,000 per bus. An electric bus is about $425,000. So you're at roughly 3 times the cost. The weight of those electric buses, 2 out of our 3 bus barns their bays can't accommodate the weight. There are basements under the bays, and we've been told that those bays will collapse under the weight of the electric buses. We had Excel run us a quote to put charging stations at one of our terminals, and just the infrastructure was $2 million. And then the real downside was by the time we could plug in all the buses at night, they wouldn't have time to fully charge before they have to leave in the morning. The other challenges around fleet management on long distance and in cold and mountain trips and those kinds of things. We really thought that propane was an area we'd look at. The industry is starting to move away from propane as an alternative fuel. More and more energy is around hydrogen and clean energy derived through that process. I think that has more of a chance. But I also think there's opportunities with what we call our white fleet, so all of our trades, our security, those kind of things. That's much more of an opportunity in the short term. I fully believe electric buses are going to get there. We're just not there yet, and it's unfortunate that I think the story's been built that anyone who's not doing it is missing something. I would say, leaning in with my colleagues who have gone down that path, we're not missing anything, and it's created more headaches than problems it's solved. But when it makes sense, we're going to do it. It's just not there yet.
Well, I know our students are gone, but we used to call that, and when something wasn't quite working out, we would call that the struggle bus. So I don't know if that's still a concept of the struggle bus, but I'll find out. Then my other question was just about as far as the universal free meals. Now I know before families had to fill out the free and reduced lunch information to get that and also to qualify for discounts in like the sports and different activities. So because everything is free for everyone, regardless of the income of the family, where are we with getting those forms filled out and our level of reimbursement before the universal lunch?
It's a great question. The rate of forms being filled out is going down, which is not surprising because there aren't as many benefits to getting it filled out. There are still definitely some, like you talked about, on fees and other things, but when the tangible immediate benefit isn't there, people aren't inclined to do it. And that's why you're seeing around the Front Range, free reduced percentages of school districts are plummeting. And it's not because the communities are getting richer, right? It is because it is being underreported. As we know this to be true when you see our McKinney-Vento families, our students experiencing homelessness, when that number doubles or triples over a couple years and your free reduced numbers are going down, there is a disconnect there, right? We know that the needs are there and the needs are growing, but every district is experiencing this. And the unfortunate part that the superintendent was talking about, when they talk about cutting at risk funding, one would think when you've allocated a certain amount of money to at-risk students, and then that count comes in lower, you could very easily just give all those at-risk kids a little bit more money and call it even. In our state, we say, good news, we don't need to spend that money and we can cut it and allocate it somewhere else. And so that's really the challenge, and I don't disagree. The state has a massive budget problem this year. But as the superintendent said, we already paid at the office. We've done this for 15 years. Someone else can take a turn balancing the state's budget this time. For kids who qualify for free lunch, who should be the lever on how we get back into a balanced budget situation.
And then just overall, I know this is not necessarily our problem, but it impacts us. So with the increase in the multifamily housing, and particularly point in those sort of developments, like, are we concerned about as we get more what has been historically labeled as transient families, are we concerned about, again, more high-need students, or is that not a thing? Is there not a correlation between that?
No, really what we look at is the type of dwelling unit being built, and then there's a historical, both nationally, locally, and then in our district, a student yield out of that type of housing. And so single-family homes tend to generate the most school-age children. Multifamily housing actually generates the least amount of student-age children on a per capita basis, if you will, by how many housing units that you're building. And so we've tracked that over time. Matt Schaefer, I know many of you have gotten to meet, is a data genius when it comes to GIS and all of these types of things. He did it, again, another story that we see, he did it for 18 years in Adams 5-star district and then came to Cherry Creek, right? And so being able to leverage his expertise, we don't necessarily correlate it to a quote-unquote type of student, but the numbers of students. And generally, our demographic stays pretty consistent. A lot of times when we're talking about multifamily, especially in the Kings Point or now Prairie Point area, these are really high-end type multifamily units. And you get a lot more of empty nesters, retirees, not as many young families, just based on the type of unit that's being built. But it's definitely something we watch, and we work with our principals, and we work with that up to make sure that we're ready for whatever population changes, whether it's from new development or other things that are going on in our world.
Well, that concludes my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is at this point in our meeting that we make time for members of the audience who have completed the online public comment form prior to 12 noon today to address the Board of Education. In order for everyone to be heard, please limit your comments to a maximum of 2 minutes. A buzzer will sound at the end of the 2 minutes, and the microphone and audio will be automatically muted. Each speaker may only speak once during public comment. Speaking time may not be shared between speakers. This is your opportunity to make comments to the Board of Education. In accordance with board policy, it is not a question and answer session. Please confine your comments to matters that are germane to the business of the district. Further, please recognize that students attend most of our meetings. Any speaker whose statements or behavior are unrelated to the business of the district, appear threatening or unsafe, or inappropriate for K-12 students may be interrupted or warned and their opportunity to comment terminated. Audience members who speak are asked to do so in a respectful manner, and the audience is encouraged to listen respectfully. Any speaker or audience member who disrupts the good order of the board meeting, including the speaking time of others, may be asked to leave. We are very interested in your feedback and will listen carefully. On behalf of the board, I want to thank you in advance for your comments and for taking time to come to tonight's meeting. Mr. Koenig, could you please call our first group of speakers?
As I call your name, please line up behind the podium in order and remember to state your name at the very beginning. Tonight we have Aaron Lachlor and Len Bryan.
Aaron LaCour. First, I want to mention and thank the amazing students who spoke earlier. They're the reason why I am here. As we stand here before you, or as I stand here before you, protection, safety, and funding are being stripped from our most vulnerable students, as you've all mentioned tonight. Students and their families are scared. They're staying home from school and work. We have students who are facing the elimination of life-saving health care. We have students who depend on our schools for most, if not all, of their daily food intake. Studies and our daily school interactions tell us that these things impact all students in a school, whether or not they are directly impacted by these specific actions. all while we are literally waiting on bated breath for the possibility of the Department of Education to be eliminated. It is not enough to look for the helpers right now. We have to be the helpers. Teachers are born nurturers and protectors. That's why we do what we do. As the student mentioned earlier tonight, teachers and staff are her anchor to her school here at Fox Ridge. It is our duty to stand with these students and families and demand the protections, safety, and funding they are so rightfully due. We ask you as a board and administration to continue to stand firmly with us. As things quickly change, please be ready to take necessary actions for our families. Please continue to communicate clearly and to all staff and families in a timely and consistent manner. I really love the video idea. I think that's a great idea. I think it's really difficult being in schools that are all separate from one another and hearing different messages, even though the intention of principals is always to be direct and to give information in the same way. It doesn't always happen that way, and I think there was a lot of confusion in the beginning about what was happening and not happening. So I appreciate all you're doing to provide clear messages. It really is helpful for those of us who are in schools and trying to do the work on a daily basis. I also appreciate all of your stances tonight. It makes me feel firm and comfortable and confident working in Cherry Creek schools, and I hope that we can all continue to work together to make sure that all students are served to the best of our ability in Cherry Creek schools. Thank you for your time.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Lynn Bryan. I have a dual role here. I'm a parent in the district. I moved my family halfway across the country to come to Cherry Creek Schools, and I also am the partner for library services. I want to thank you, members of the board, administrators, and the community. I'm delighted to speak to you tonight about Cherry Creek Reads 2025. It'll be taking place the week before spring break, March 10th through the 14th. This is an initiative that exemplifies our community's commitment to literacy and community engagement, a lot of the things we talked about today, right? This is the 7th year for this program, and I'm super excited about the theme for this year's program, which is Read Together, Celebrate Together. It really captures one of the things that makes Cherry Creek Reads special. When families, educators, and students read together, they do more than just share a story. They create lasting bonds and memories that strengthen their connections to each other, to reading, and to their school community. Think back to having that son, daughter, grandchild on your lap sharing a story. That's a truly magical experience. We believe this year's featured book, A Face is a Poem by Julie Morstad, to be an exemplary choice for this program. It's full of imagery, it's full of beautiful illustrations. I think it's something that our educators and our students and our families can really get a lot out of. These programs demonstrate why literacy is so important, why our libraries and books are so important in the lives of our kids, their families, and their educators. And again, I just want to express my sincere gratitude to the board, to our administrative staff, to our community, to our elected officials, all of whom have given such great support for this program and literacy program like it that are happening in our buildings all across the district. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for welcoming me and my family to Cherry Creek, and for all the support you're giving to our kids through literacy, libraries, and books. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Garland, that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda, resolutions 25.2.1 through 25.2.11.
So moved.
Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Directors Allen,
Aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Egan, Garland,
Aye.
Knowles,
Motion carries. Our next regular meeting will be Monday, March 10th, 2025 at 7 p.m. School, 25100 East Bellevue Avenue, Aurora, Colorado, 80016. I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn the February 10th, 2025 meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Allen,
Aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Egan,
Aye.
Garland,
Aye.
Knowles.
Aye.
Our meeting is adjourned.